So yesterday was a busy day as far as everything Switch 2 related. I mean, just blowout news. We had an hour-long direct, and then things have just been trickling out all day long. Now, a lot of this stuff may have already been covered yesterday. We talked about the accessories and the cost of them, and definitely wanted to get out in front of the cost of Mario Kart Worlds because I think that was the one thing that no one was expecting to happen, was that Nintendo was gonna come out and say, yeah, our launch title, if you buy it separately, is $80. Now, granted, I think the majority of people who are going to be early adopters of the Switch 2 are going to buy the Mario Kart bundle to get it on sale. I would highly recommend it if you weren't already considering it, because at some point, if you're not currently wanting to play Mario Kart, at some point you're going to want to play Mario Kart. Whether it's you or anyone in your family, friends, whatever, it's just a good game to have. Why not get it for $30 cheaper? But on top of that, like I said, more stuff has just been trickling out. We're 24 hours later since that presentation. All of the major gaming news industry people have gotten to play the Switch 2. So we've now got hands-on impressions of Mario Kart World. We got hands-on impressions of Donkey Kong, Bonanza. The Nintendo Treehouse stuff is going on right now. This video kind of serves just to kind of put a lot of the other questions to bed that have been coming out as of right now. So let's jump right into some of these other games that have come out as also being $79.99, because it's not just Mario Kart World. So this article is from IGN talking about not only the pricing of these games, but also we actually get to see the game boxes too, which I don't really like, but that's just personal preference. But this is where it's just like one of them things where I just trying to wrap my head around it. Kirby and the Forgotten Land Switch 2 edition plus the Star-Crossed World DLC, $79.99. So a $20 upgrade plus expansion. So I guess if you look at it like that and you already own the game, a $20 paid upgrade isn't as much of a hard pill to swallow as, hey, this game's $80 on the Switch 2. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 edition. That game, when it came out before yesterday happened, was the only $70 Switch game. And I felt like that game deserved that $70 because it was the biggest game probably the Switch was ever going to get. Now it's $80. I feel like, I mean, you're still paying that $10 upgrade for it. Super Mario Party Jamboree plus the Jamboree TV, also $80. And then Breath of the Wild coming in at $70. So I mean, it's, as someone who owns the majority of these games, I don't see a personal issue with the $10, $20 upgrade path to get into the new stuff. But I just see the sticker shock of $79.99 turning people away who currently don't already have those games. Now, an article on IGN also talks about, with analysts market, about how this potentially could be Nintendo getting in front of inflation, and because of the tariffs and stuff that are going on in the US, at least being part of the problem. And there's always the chance that later on the pricing comes down, but they didn't want to start the game at $70 and then raise it later, which under that perspective, I understand it a lot more. Plus, I just think that like some of these games, they do take more resources to make and they are more expensive. But I feel like this was the floodgates opening to where, well, if Nintendo can get away with this, someone else can get away with it too. Like, I highly expect that whatever the Call of Duty comes out this year might be $80. We've already heard rumors that GTA 6, when it comes out, could be $100. I feel like they just got validation to really do it. So I think it's entirely possible that the industry is going to start shifting to $80 games. Hopefully I'm wrong. Donkey Kong Bonanza is a $70 game. So it's not every game being affected by this. So it's kind of like just we'll just have to play it by ear kind of thing and see this stuff as it comes out. Let's talk real quick about the Switch 2 box art. I don't like it. And the only reason why I don't like it is this gigantic 5-head at the top. I haven't seen anyone online try to like make different renders of this, but all they'd have to do is take a little red square for the Nintendo Switch 2 logo, put it in the corner, and that's it. The game card boxes are red, so they stand out. They're different than the Switch 1, but then there's just more artwork that can fit on the box, or even just squeeze it up a little bit further. Like, it just feels like it just takes up too much of the box. I feel like the reason why they did this is because they want to make sure that people know that this is a Switch 2 version and it's not going to work on the regular Switch. I understand it, but I feel like they could fix this just a little bit. Also, we have this stipulation about Switch 2 physical games and how some of them don't even have the full game in the box. Now, this is a nice graph that was put out here, that I'm pulling this off of Reddit. But if you remember with the Switch 1, there was a box, had a code in it, and that code would allow you to download the game. So in this example, they're using the Outer Worlds. Well, the Switch 2 is kind of the same thing, but it requires a game key card to work. So the example here is Street Fighter 6. It says it's on the bottom, it says full game or game key card. And it says Switch 2 game key cards will allow the resale and sharing of downloadable games because the game key card isn't tied to a system and simply unlocks the game. So pretty much you take this card, you pop it in your Switch, it downloads Street Fighter 6 in this example. We'll say you want to get rid of Street Fighter 6, you don't play it, sell it to your friend, they can pop that card in and download it. It works the same way. It's just that some of these games take up so much storage that they can't fit on a Switch 2 cartridge. And the only other option was that they would have to make higher capacity Switch 2 cartridges. And if $80 is too much for a video game, now you start talking about $90 or $100 because they have to make these higher capacity game key cards. So it's a little crazy that this is what it's come to, but I'm also not opposed to it because it's going to help keep the cost as low as it possibly can, which is already a lot. All right, next, let's talk about stuff we already kind of knew was going to be coming, but now we just have official confirmation of it. Is that Nintendo has confirmed that the Switch 2 uses DLSS and ray tracing technology, but hasn't gone into full detail about how it works or to what degree that it uses it. And there, another quote from one of these Ask the Developer interviews says, "We use DLSS upscaling technology, and that's something that we need to use as we develop games. And when it comes to the hardware, it is able to output to a TV at a max of 4K. Whether the software developer is going to use that as a native resolution or get it to upscale is something that the software developer can choose. I think it opens up a lot of options for software developers to choose from." In a similarly vague response, they confirmed that the Switch 2's GPU is capable of ray tracing. Quote, "I believe this provides yet another option for the software developer to use and a tool for them." So, I mean, yeah, we kind of knew we were going to get like AI upscaling through DLSS. Ray tracing is a little out there. I didn't think that was actually going to come, but the upscale to 4K was kind of always going to be the way that they go. But it is interesting that they say that like the system is capable of native 4K. But if you have like a big game, like your Tears of the Kingdom type games, you can use the DLSS to bump it to 4K. So that way the game itself is being rendered in a lower resolution so it runs better. Very interesting. I'm actually really curious to see. I mean, you really can't tell unless you just know what you're looking for. But just knowing whether or not Pokemon Legends ZA is a native 4K game or if it upscales it is just very interesting to me. This is the Switch 2's UI. Notice anything unfortunately familiar compared to the current Switch 1 UI? It looks exactly the same, except it just has more buttons on the bottom. So kind of going through what we see here. Of course, we've got our Nintendo Switch Online. The C button for like your connectivity with voice chat and everything. The green one's interesting because I don't know, they haven't talked about what this means yet, but to me, it's like that reports thing that was on like the 3DS and the Wii U that would show you like playtime and all that other stuff in there. That's just what it looks like to me. Of course, we've got the Nintendo eShop, which no confirmation yet. We have seen a picture of the eShop, but no confirmation if it's an app that has to be loaded or it's just built into the UI this time. Hopefully it's built in, but if it is an app that has to launch, hopefully it just runs better. Next is the photo gallery for your screen recordings and everything like that. This next one, I'm assuming this is the one about like download play games. So they talked about like certain games you're able to share them with friends locally. I think like Clubhouse 51 was like the big one that they kind of showcased, where one person has the game and they can share it with other people. I'm assuming that's what that icon's for. Of course, we have one for the Joy-Cons, and then we have this other one, which is for the virtual game card feature that was shown off last week during the Switch 1 Direct, where you can load virtual game cards, of course, across your separate systems or on a family account, so you don't have to connect to the internet every single time you want to play it. And then, of course, we've got what looks like the sun. I mean, it's a sun icon, so to me, it makes it think like you could toggle light and dark mode. But it could also be like their version of a settings wheel, because I don't see a settings wheel option on this menu, unless that's what the green thing is. I doubt it. I think it's probably the little wheel on the side over here. And then, of course, a power button, which would be really cool if there is a power button built into the UI, because on the Switch 1, if your system's docked, you can't like turn the system off. You can only put it into rest mode. You can only turn the system completely off in handheld. So if this is like the dock screen and you're able to actually turn the system completely off, small thing, but nice little quality of life feature there. Okay, next thing. One of the big issues that everyone has always had with the Nintendo Switch is Joy-Con drift. That has been a problem that has plagued that system since it came out. And during one of the Ask the Developer interviews for the Switch 2, the Switch 2 producer, I'm going to probably butcher this and I apologize, Koichi Kawamoto, described that the Joy-Cons have, quote, larger and more durable analog sticks with, quote, smoother movement. What I didn't hear in that is that there is Hall effect joysticks, which maybe there aren't Hall effect joysticks, but hopefully that they've solved the problem with that so we don't have the same issues again. But I would just like to hear the confirmation that there is Hall effect sticks, but they seem to be calling them smooth gliding sticks instead, which could be just Nintendo terminology for Hall effect, but they just don't want to say that. But I'd be shocked if we had Joy-Con issues 2 generations in a row. I feel like they've fixed it. They did also briefly talk about the Switch 2 Pro controller, saying, quote, aside from the color, the Switch 2 Pro controller may look indistinguishable from the previous controller at first glance, but it was redesigned from scratch. All right, and our last thing, we're just going to go over a quick preview that IGN did. I'm not going to read this whole article. There's a lot here talking about accessories, games, pricing, features, and everything like that. But this is just kind of like, I just want to hit up on 2 specific things: build quality, battery life, because those things were not talked about during the presentation yesterday. Pretty much my favorite thing here is from Brian Altano at IGN. It says, one of my biggest issues with the original Switch was the build quality. Joy-Con drift aside, the system itself just felt a bit wobbly at times. Joy-Con and anything else you attached to the console felt loose, kickstand was flimsy, and the launch dock literally scratched the screen. That all feels largely improved with Switch 2 from what we've played so far. Overall, the system feels much more sturdy and much less like a fancy toy like the Switch 1 did. With sleek ergonomic design and no Joy-Con wobble, it's got a good weight to it, and holding it side by side with the Steam Deck, which we did, makes it feel lighter and less bulky. Sticks, triggers, and buttons all feel great too, as does a D-pad. And this says we didn't get to play any 2D games like twitchy side-scrolling platforms or classic fighters, but the D-pad feels like it will hopefully be better for them. This is definitely a system aimed for an older audience than the first Nintendo Switch, and not just because of the premium price tag. It doesn't even have a fun, kid-friendly alternate colorway available at launch like Nintendo usually does, just dark gray and muted colors. And then there was another thing in here talking about the tech specs and everything. So the Switch 2 battery life, depending on what game you're playing, 2.5 to 6.5 hours. So it's a little bit of a downgrade, but I feel like it's warranted just because of the more power going on. This article says that the original Nintendo Switch's battery life was 4.5 to 9 hours, but I'm pretty sure I remember the Switch One's battery life being like 3 to 7, depending on the game, and I think it was 3 hours playing Breath of the Wild was what the test was for it. So I mean, yeah, it's a little bit of a downgrade, but I mean, at the same time, I feel like most people are at this point, if you're playing a handheld PC, like you've got your charger with you because you know you're going to need it for that, or you're just playing on the dock or something. I mean, it's higher resolution on the screen, all this other stuff. I feel like it's warranted for a lower battery life. I know this video is kind of just all over the place talking about all this stuff, and I'm sure that there's more stuff that's going to break later today, just from all the Treehouse stuff. And, you know, we've got more Treehouse tomorrow and more previews, and then we've got 2 months of waiting and people testing out the system at these hands-on events. I'm going to preach this probably every single video just to make sure that everyone who watches this hears this. If you are planning on getting a Switch 2 at launch, 2 things. 1, I highly recommend that you go through Nintendo's channels to get one, because they have systems in place to prevent scalpers from getting their hands on them before you, by making sure that you have to have at least a certain amount of hours logged with Nintendo Switch Online and have been like a paid member with them. So if you fit that criteria, they're going to make sure that you're able to get one before some random loser on the internet tries to flip them for $1,000 or whatever they're going to do. Second, if you think that even in the slightest chance that you or anyone in your family, friends, whatever, has any interest in playing Mario Kart World, it is worth your money to just get the bundle at launch and save yourself $30. It just makes sense. And then this is a bonus tip. I'll say this probably every video too. I highly recommend, if you are buying a micro SD express card for your Nintendo Switch 2, do not buy one with a Nintendo logo on it, because they cost more because it has a Nintendo logo on it. Amazon is your best friend. Usually you can find a good deal on one. I'm all about supporting Nintendo when they do things that make sense, but if you can buy a SanDisk memory card for $45 for 256 gigs, or you can buy the exact same card, but it has a Triforce on it for $70, I know which one I'm buying. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like on it. Subscribe for more information about the Switch 2. I'm sure every day there's going to be some new video coming out about this new information leading up to June 5th. And get your wallets ready. Mine's already hurting. I've had to have a stern talking with it, just letting it know what's about to happen. Y'all take care.